Better Days for Lesbos, a story that explores the ethical boundaries of photojournalism. Mytilene Airport, Lesbos, 14th January 2016.
Uxval ran his hand over his shaved head, did up his navy blue leather jacket, and crossed the arrivals and departures lounge. His dark eyes checked out the premises and straightaway spotted a slim man with a trimmed beard and a pink scarf, who was giving him a welcoming smile. It was Stavros.
Scala Sycamania, the arrivals.
Stavros brought the newcomer up to date with the situation.
Between 15 and 20 boats arrive every day. The arrangement is always the same. The men around the sides and the women and children in the middle. Once they've paid, some complain, and whether they like it or not, the mafia pigs force them to get on board, often at gunpoint. We've heard shots from the other side.
They got in the car and headed up to the place where the rescue team would lead the boat. When they arrived, there were lots of people waiting, volunteers and photographers. After a tense wait, the boat docked in the safest place. One of the lifeguards, who appeared to be in charge, said,
It was nothing. The engine had stalled. They were very anxious, but we approached them slowly, calmed them down and led them here. Luckily, the sea is very calm.
Stavros took the opportunity to make introductions.
This is Uxval Gomez from Magnum. He's just arrived for a few days. And this is Oscar Camps from Barcelona.
They shook hands.
We created an NGO and we've been here since September. You work for Magnum?
Well, I work with them and I'm a partner. We don't need to look for work. It comes to us.
That's what I admire about the Americans, employing the best on merit.
And he is one of the best.
We, on the other hand, wrote to all the Greek, European and international institutions to see if we could help them, and we didn't get a single reply. So we just came along, and within hours we were in the water. Well, please excuse me, I need a hot shower. We cover 17 kilometers of coastline, and we're on call all the time. I'm sure we'll meet up in the Tokima bar.
It'd be a real pleasure.
Second day in Scala. Let's see if we're lucky today.
An easterly wind was blowing that didn't bode well. Today many more will come. The mafia are having sale. It will be a busy day, Stavros observed. Uxval avidly took photos all day, without a break. Men and women who had fallen into water and were rescued by the open-arm volunteers. An inflatable boat that capsized against the cliffs. People who landed trembling, soaking wet, shocked and amazed to have survived first the war and then the crossing. If we had known it would be like this, we wouldn't have come, said a man hugging his wife and 2 daughters. Almost everyone used mobile phones to give people the good news that they were safe and sound. Some to unlock passwords that would allow the mafia gangs to collect the agreed amount of money. Uxval was used to all this. He needed more. At noon, the sea was getting worse. Several boats were having problems. One with a stalled engine, one full of water and about to sink, far away from the coast. The jet skis rode up and down the coast furiously. But that wasn't enough for Uxval.
We have to go out in a boat. I've got to get close-ups.
It's dangerous. The problem is that nobody will want to take us.
We could go in your boat. Come on, don't tell me that you're scared. Not the great Stavros Farandouri.
A picture is not worth a life. But the world has to know what's going on. Okay, we'll give it a go. Let no one say we didn't try.
They went down to the dock and got on Stavros's boat. He started the engine, and with a quick maneuver, he sailed out of the port. The boat leapt like a runaway horse. After a minute of riding waves, they were approaching the inflatable boat that was about to sink. Uxbal was right. Nobody had ever taken those pictures before. They sailed around the boat in a circle, holding the rudder firmly. Uxbal shot photo after photo in a frenzy. The refugees were terrified, and Stavros had no camera to separate him from that terrible reality. He could see the naked truth. And the eye contact was overwhelming. "Get closer," Uxbal kept saying to him. He did it, mechanically, without thinking. And then a man stood up and fell into the water. In 6 seconds, the sea had swallowed him up. A woman moved to the space he had left on the edge, holding a child with both hands and gesturing to Stavros to come and take him. Her eyes made contact with the old photographer, who couldn't bear it any longer. So he turned the boat around and went back towards the port. 2 boats were approaching with the rescue team. Uxbal, hunched over in the bottom of the boat, was checking his pictures. Once they reached the shelter of Tokaima, they had a few brandies each. And Uxbal started explaining his reasoning.
They're statistics, numbers. What does one more death matter? Or 10? No one claims the missing people. If the statistics say that 70 children have died, you can assume it was 140. Remember what the guy from Barcelona told us, how that image of the child, Elan, is what made them go to Lesbos. And how many lives have they not managed to save up to now? Don't say that an image isn't worth a life. You're wrong.
Stavros, feeling overwhelmed, sat there listening in silence, with the look of that mother engraved on his brain like an iron brand. He didn't want to hear any more. "Good night," he said. And when he was alone, he burst into tears. In the room next door, Uxbal tried to sleep. His arguments were unquestionably rational. He went through the shots of the day. There had been some good ones, and the odd exceptional one, it had been worth risking 2 lives and ignoring the poor refugees who were waiting, trembling, for a rescue that didn't happen, while he had taken photos, as was his duty. He smiled. It wasn't that serious. It wasn't his first time, and it wouldn't be his last. When the helicopter that was evacuating injured civilians, fleeing from ISIS, was shot down in Kobane, he had also made a questionable decision. He managed to persuade the pilot to reenact a simulation of the scene, delaying that flight to the hospital for what would be his most famous video. "Damn it," he said. "The world had to know. The photo that Robert Capa took of the fallen soldier who died at Cerro Muriano was also a montage." And he went to sleep.
Molivos, the kiss of death.
The next day, they went down to have breakfast at Tokaima. The port was reliving the tragedy. Some men were talking hurriedly. Stavros reported.
A large fishing boat set sail last night from Majvalik with a hull packed full of refugees, but the engine stopped and it's been drifting near Molivos. When it was spotted and the rescuers were arriving, part of the deck, filling with water, fell on those who were piled up inside the hull. There are many dead, many of them children. They've asked for volunteers to go in their boats.
Let's go, Stavros.
Yeah, let's go.
They've ordered Hotel Gorgona's fishing boat. A volunteer joined them who said he was from the Bolivarian brigades, or who knows where.
Do you know how to swim, son?
No, he replied.
Oh, well, that makes two of us.
Right, here we go, shouted the son from Hotel Gorgona, starting the engine and steering out of the port. The site of the tragedy was a couple of miles from Skala Sikamenia, following the coastline towards Molivos. When they arrived, the scene was dantesque. The fishing boat was already secured, and crowds of men were towing it towards the coast, laden with corpses, which the rescuers and volunteers started to cover up. Many life jackets were floating in the sea. They got as close as possible. Stavros and the boy from the hotel were throwing life-saving rings and ropes to those who were closest to put them on board with their arms, while the guy from the brigades took charge of the rudder. Uxval was taking the best photos of his life when suddenly Stavros was trying by himself to pull out a boy who was a dead weight. The old photographer tried to get up to give himself more leverage. He wobbled a few seconds against the railing of the boat, flapping like a great seagull, until he lost his balance and fell precipitously into the sea. He surfaced for a moment and then sank again. The boy from the hotel saw it happening and called out to Uxval.
Stavros has fallen in the water. He's drowning!
The boy dived into the sea. He caught Stavros' body, which was floating half underwater, under the arms and pulled him out. When he surfaced, he looked for the boat and saw that there was nobody to throw them a line or a life-saving ring. The boat was far away, and it was awkward holding Stavros' body. The boy did what he could while shouting desperately. Finally, the boat started getting closer. Uxval appeared over the side with a rubber life-saving ring, which he threw at them when they were near enough. They started reeling in the cable to bring the life-saving ring closer, and between the volunteer and Uxval, they managed to get them out of the water. First, they hoisted up Stavros, and then the young Greek. They tried to revive Stavros, but they got no response. Like other times in his life, Uxval saw that death was raising its head and there was no way out. His instinct had led him to do the right thing, but he had taken too long to listen to it. If he hadn't taken the last photos, if he hadn't gone to the cabin to put his camera away, if he had saved the shots of the day, but now nobody could bring Stavros back to life. And this time there were witnesses. An indescribable anguish seized his soul. It was the end of his career, he thought. He brusquely pushed aside the boy from Hotel Gorgona and desperately tried to give mouth-to-mouth resuscitation to Stavros. But it was in vain. The soul had left the body of the old photographer, his eyes staring like two empty moons.